Welcome to the Intentional Wellbeing Podcast. I am very excited. This is the second time I've started because I am that excited to talk to Christa Janine. You may have seen her on the interwebs. I came across her in one of my team meetings when somebody has said, have you seen Aloe Moves? They're actually looking to do a little bit of representation, and we have a body out there that looks like the bodies that we are moving in fitness. So let me tell you a little bit about Christa. She is a health and wellness professional, teaching yoga since 2012. And since then, she has launched a successful virtual fitness studio, hosting weekly private and sold out group classes. Good for you. She does life coaching, business groups, running groups, individual groups, and several workshops on yoga study and business. And as a life coach, Christa helps women heal from their past trauma and establish a self-designed narrative for their lives, which is super important. Retelling your story in a way that supports you is immeasurable. It catapults you into a whole different space. As a yoga instructor and a digital fitness coach, her main focus through social media and business overall is to encourage and empower others to live their most authentic lives by creating their own narratives for their future. Additionally, Christa has navigated the yoga and fitness industry for over 8 years in many markets throughout North America and has discovered a lack of diversity and inclusion. Surprise! We're going to talk about that today. She's experienced not only for herself, but her fellow BIPOC community. It has been passed over for promotions, class times, and formats being questioned about their teaching experience by students, identifying as a change agent and an individual who believes in equality in all spaces. She now focuses her energy on educating individuals, companies on the importance of diversity and inclusion in yoga and fitness spaces. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I was so excited. Like, you came up in a group meeting. I'm like, I want to interview people who are bucking the system, changing the space, changing the narrative. I feel most at home with folks like that. You and I do a lot of similar work. So I'm always excited to talk to somebody who's in the yoga and movement and fitness spaces, breaking down what fitness is, breaking down what fitness isn't, and showing us that fitness looks different in all kinds of bodies and that there's no one way to show up in the fitness space. You can show up authentically as yourself. So tell me, how did you become interested in fitness? And what was like your first introduction to it?
Oh, well, I mean, I've been working out, I guess, technically since I was a kid, right? Like, right. I played year-round sports as a child, me and my brothers. My parents were both very active. So people often ask me that question, and I'm like, it's never not been a part of my life. Like, I don't know any other way to live except for the way I live, because it's always been just a part of my everyday. My dad was in the military, so he was always at the gym. My mom and her friends were always, doing their own aerobics classes and like Jane Fondaing it up. So I've never not like known a world where fitness in this capacity didn't exist. Right? And I know that's not everybody's story, but for me, it's like I've never known a world without it. So I don't even know how you got started to it. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it, and it just kind of happened naturally.
I love that. Like, I have to laugh when you say Jane Fonda. So I'm probably the same age as your mom, because that's how I got interested in movement. There was just Jane Fonda tape where she had the striped leotard. Yeah. And she had the leg warmers, and she's on the front of the box, kind of like in a Pilates teaser position. And I thought, oh, what are we doing? And then you do the workout, and she's got a singer in the class. So you're doing the cardio part. This woman singing is doing cardio and singing, which I think she's lip syncing, but still, if she's doing the cardio and singing, good for you. Yeah. So that makes me smile, because
that was definitely my mom and her friends. And then there was this one tape that they would like play twice through because they loved it so much. So they would do it twice, and I'm like, all right. But yeah. And still to this day, like, she talks about it, and again, it's always been, I don't know, a point of like joy. And not that I haven't used fitness to lose weight, but regardless of if I've been losing weight or not, I've always wanted to work out.
Nice.
And like see if I could get stronger, see if I could build my endurance and agility. Like, yeah, so I think that's very interesting. Like, because a lot of people have asked me that question recently.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm like, I don't know. It's just always been my thing.
I love that because I was introduced to fitness as a modality to change my body. So at first I didn't really love it, but when I figured out that I could just feel good and I could do it just to do it, I was like, okay, you know what? Like remove the attachment from it. Like it didn't have to be about changing an aesthetic. It could just be about feeling good and moving my body. So I love that you came into the introduction of fitness and movement from a place of joy from the beginning. Not to say that you haven't used it to change your body, but for the most part, just to move. And your parents modeled that behavior beautifully. So it never became something that was odd or different or not a part of your life.
Right, exactly. And it's actually weird for me when I'm not working out. Like when I don't have a regular schedule. Because I lived in New York for a few years, and it was just so bizarre because I just wasn't working out as much as I used to just because of like the time constraints of my job or just living in New York and managing things. And I felt so weird. Like I didn't even necessarily feel like myself because I moved from Chicago where I was a fitness instructor even when I was in school, like getting my master's, and I like would work out with my friends on the weekend, and I don't know, it was just so bizarre not to work out.
Not to be,
New York. Yeah.
I find that New York is a walkable city. Like we were there last weekend and my legs still hurt like I did a leg day from walking like 50, 60, 70 blocks. And yes, New York City blocks are short, but I still on average was clocking about 13K a day. So it still was like a lot. But I really love that you've had a positive experience. The thing that blew my mind, to be honest, and the reason I wanted to talk to you the most on the podcast is breaking the barrier. So I have been sort of following Aloe, not really following Aloe because the imagery that I've seen on there from the jump has not really been representative of people who look like us. And then one of my team members said, have you seen the new teacher on Aloe? And I'm like, wait, what? And we watched your video. We watched your promo video in our meeting. And I'm like, I have to talk to her because breaking through that barrier of showing diversity within body types and diversity within ethnicity and skin color is really hard in big companies like Aloe, like Lulu, like Athleta. I think Athleta is doing a better job of it than most. I think they show a lot more diversity, but I'm noticing that you're kind of the first one to break through. How did that come about? And no,
go ahead. I mean, finish your question for sure. But
how did that come about? How do you feel about working in that space? Because I don't see a lot of other people that look like you in that space, but we have to start somewhere. I have like mixed feelings about starting somewhere, being the beginner, and then like tokenism. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I actually know exactly what you're saying. Right. It's interesting in regards to the fact that there are other Black instructors on Aloe, right? And definitely, not as many as there used to be, and a lot of people have come and gone and are doing other things. Sure. So, like, if you dig back through the archive of, like, Aloe Moves, you'll see people like Koya Webb. You'll see people like, what's Felicia's last name? You might know Felicia. She's one of the people who started Sisters. Is it Sisters in Yoga? Or Sisters of Yoga?
Yes.
Yeah, and she's doing a lot of other things as well now. So Koya, Felicia, there's a few other ones sprinkled throughout, right? So I'm definitely not the first Black woman, but they're both very small. They're like
I was just gonna
typical like yoga bodies, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes.
So in that regard,
or the stereotypical yoga body. Let's put that in
right.
quotes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in that regard, I definitely am the first, I guess, larger body that's an instructor on the platform for sure, especially teaching the formats that I teach. Yes. So I'm not leading meditations. I'm not really even, I'm teaching yoga more so now. Like I have a lot more yoga classes coming in the pipeline. But my first classes were not yoga classes. I mean, they were yoga infused classes, right? They were more strength training than anything. So I'm definitely the first person on the platform to do even that model, right? Yeah. To do HIIT and yoga together. Yep. Which is how it kind of transpired, right? It was something new and different. And everybody is always looking for the new and different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I taught a couple of classes for them on their Aloe Moves Live, that eventually went over to their YouTube channel for Aloe Moves. And I mean, and I did some promos for them a while back, right? Like a couple of years ago, I did promos for just the platform in general, like as a student.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, it was an ongoing relationship, and I was very upfront with them because I'm an Aloe advocate, and the individual who, she doesn't even work with the company anymore, the individual I spoke with about being an Aloe advocate, I was like, look, like, I don't mind, you know, being an advocate. I don't mind X, Y, and Z, but I'm looking more so for paid opportunities.
Yeah,
I think that's another thing that Black women in general don't do, is like to be very upfront about their intentions.
Yeah,
right? Because at
true.
first I was like, I don't want to do this, and I told her that. I was like, I really don't want like just more exchange, like clothes
exposure. I don't want any of that. Yeah. Exposure doesn't pay the bills necessarily.
So, but she was honest with me, and I appreciate her for it. And she definitely did help me get to the place I am now, right? But I feel like without that initial conversation of me very much so being vocal about my intentions, being vocal about what I wanted from this partnership, I would not have gotten to where I am right now, right? I wouldn't have even had the opportunity to teach the Aloe Moves Live. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to even be in the promos, right? And when I went to do the promos, they're like, oh, your form's so good. And I was like, yeah, I teach yoga. And that's the thing too, is like they have, and fun fact, like previously they were hiring a lot of people who were just fitness models, but didn't really understand how these postures were supposed to look in the body, or how their form was supposed to be. So, yeah, you're a fitness model, but you don't know anything about yoga. Or, yeah, you're a fitness model, but you don't know how to lift weights properly, right?
No.
So now you're making the platform look bad, and then the shoots take longer. And I think that was another thing with me that they really enjoyed, is like, because I knew what was going on, things could happen quicker.
Right, sure.
So I think that's kind of like how all those things transpired, right? It was, again, me being vocal about what I wanted and what I was doing, and then also me having the background to support that.
Right.
Which, again, most Black women do. Like, even when you look at Ash Pryor on Peloton, who's the new Peloton rowing instructor, you know, she's a phenomenal rower, and she knows her stuff, and you know, people are so shocked that she's such a good, like, rowing instructor, but it's like, she's been doing this forever. Like, of course she is. And quite frankly, if she wasn't, they wouldn't have hired her, because you have to be better than everyone else for them to even pay attention to you as a Black woman, right? And
absolutely.
That's like the reality of it. If you got to this point, it's not just because you're cute, right?
No.
And not saying that's other people's truth, but at the same time, there's
it's the truth for Black women.
It's the truth for Black women.
I just came from the salon. So the salon is my people. We talk about, the beauty shop. We talk about politics. We talk about race. We talk about everything. And I just finished having a conversation with my stylist about that, because we are always the ones that are the most criticized. And when I saw the backlash that Ash was getting online for being a plus size rower, I'm just like, what is it people want from us? What is it that you want from us? Why, just because you have a bigger size body, does it mean you can't be an athlete? Why is there only one way to look at anything? White supremacy, everybody, in case you were wondering. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also where it was coming from, because it wasn't coming from Instagram, and it wasn't coming from TikTok. It was coming from Facebook. And when we look at, and so another caveat to throw in the mix here, guys. So I've worked in tech and television for the past decade plus. So some of the little tidbits I'm going to give you are from that perspective as well.
Wonderful.
So that being said, I just finished a contract at Meta. So when you look at the Meta, Facebook, whatever it's called now. When you look at the demographic of who is on Facebook versus who is on Instagram versus who is on TikTok, it's very telling, right? And it's very telling of an old school mindset and an old school, like, ideology. And also this old school thought that you can say whatever you want with no consequence, right?
That blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah, so that's where she was getting most of her criticism, is from these, like, trolls sitting behind their keyboards. And to your point, it's like, I mean, who's to say that just because somebody's small, they know what they're doing or that they're actually in shape? Because they're not.
You
and
just
a lot of
said
times
that.
They're not.
You just said that. They hired fitness models that had bad form. They hired fitness models that took more time to take the picture. You have good form. You've been working in fitness your whole life. You have worked out your whole life. You are in a plus size body, and they recognize that you're the real deal, which comes back to Black folks. You have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Like you always have something to prove when you show up. Then when you show up fully ready, fully prepared, and full of excellence, people want to come for you because they're somehow jealous or intimidated, or they think that there's only one way to be in the world. And it is so frustrating. So that's why I was so excited to see you on Aloe. Because I'm like, when did this happen? I've seen so many battles happening in the Aloe space when they first came on board. There was this whole brouhaha with Keno McGregor. There was this whole brouhaha with all this other stuff. And I'm like, what is going on over there? Like, I would just come and watch for the drama, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm here for the comments. And then when I saw you on there, I'm thinking, has something changed?
Yeah, and I think it's also twofold, right?
Yeah.
Because it starts to get into this space of people not understanding that two truths can exist at once, right?
Right.
So though I've had a lot of great feedback, as has Ash prior, right? It's like,
yes,
but
she's brilliant.
I love her. I'm actually getting a rower because of her.
Right.
But that being said, the negative feedback I've gotten from both the plus size community, who their negative feedback isn't even necessarily toward me, but they're using me as an example of how Aloe is like, what's the word they're using? Oh, there's this one word, because it keeps coming up, and I'm like, y'all don't even know what that word means. Oh shoot.
It's not an exploitation.
It's almost like misleading, but it's not misleading. But we'll go with misleading for the sake of time in my memory right now.
Yeah,
but
I feel
it's
you.
almost like they're
catfishing.
Saying, that they're not using the word, but this is the realm of reality.
Right. This is what they're thinking, right?
This is what they're thinking, right? It's like, oh, Aloe is just like trying to make people think that they're inclusive, and they have like plus sizes, and like somebody was even like, well, where are the clothes that she has on that you can buy on the rack? And like, you guys don't even go up to more than like 2X and yada yada yada, implying that I was like 2X, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I had to get people to understand when they're making these comments, I'm like, you're making an assumption about me, just like you don't want people to make an assumption about you.
Yes.
You know what size I am.
Right.
So that's step one. So even in that regard, they're not lying. I am indeed wearing their clothes.
Right.
But my body, and this is the other thing too that I think all of us need to understand. A medium or a large on me isn't going to look the same as a medium or a large on somebody else because of how my body is built, right?
Right.
And not saying one body is better than the other, but we have so many assumptions.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have so many assumptions from both sides of the aisle, right? Which we can use in regards to politics, which we can use in regard to so many things.
Everything.
And people on these extreme ends. And I'm like, y'all, like, we got to start meeting each other in the middle, right? Yeah. We got to start acknowledging that it's great that I'm in this space as a representation, but at the same time, it would be even better if Aloe had more inclusive sizing. Those two truths can exist at the same time.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
And they don't have to fight against each other, and you don't have to be like, oh, she's clearly 2X, and you guys had to make her clothes custom so she could be in this ad. And I'm like, does that even make sense? Like, how in your mind did that make sense that that's what they did, so then I could in turn teach the class for them? Right? So it's things like that. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the typical, like, oh, well, why would I take advice from somebody that's overweight on how to lose weight? And I was like, absolutely not. Don't take advice from me on how to lose weight. Because that's not
what I'm here for. I'm not here for that. Yep.
Right. I'm not here for that. I'm not going to give you advice on that. But what I will give you advice on is how to get stronger, how to build agility, how to gain more flexibility, how to increase your longevity in life. Like, that's what I'm talking to you about. I don't care what size you are. You need all those things regardless of what size you are. right?
And that's what we need to be talking about, right? That's what I always tell people motion is lotion, and that my fitness routine, my movement routine, I call it joyful, mindful movement for people who might be activated by the word exercise or traumatized by I was just talking about this in one of my fitness classes this week, traumatized by like the president's fitness test. I know you all do that in the States, and we have a Ontario or Canada, blah, blah, similarity where you had to do like 10 pull-ups and run for 4 minutes and do all these push-ups. And if you didn't excel at each
pull-ups,
that's just it. And if you didn't excel at these things, you somehow weren't fit. It didn't matter that you played softball 3 times a week, or you rode your bike every day to and from school, or you walked, a mile to or from school, or, you played outside and you roller skated. Those were not measurements of your fitness, but the ability to do 5 pull-ups, which I could not do, or hang from a rope, which I could do very well, was a measure of your fitness level. And if you didn't hit those markers, you were somehow unfit. And they sent a letter home to your parents. I'm like, she plays soccer and softball and she rides her bike to school. How is she not? Yeah. How is it that what is the measurement of fitness?
You know what's funny about that? I distinctly remember doing that test in maybe 7th or 8th grade.
Something like that.
And my PE teacher, and nothing against my PE teachers. I actually loved my PE teachers in this regard.
That's good. You had a good experience.
They had me like helping all the other girls, because it was like boys had their PE class and girls had theirs.
Yeah,
so I was helping everybody, because I've always been like relatively strong. I've had a relatively like developed upper body, helping all these other girls get on the bar so they could do theirs. So then by the time it's my turn to do my
you're too tired.
I'm not hanging here. I don't care. I was like, if you can't determine from me helping 10, 15 people get on this bar that I have upper body strength, then that's on you. Ain't got nothing to do with me. And I mean, of course I passed. My PhD was like, whatever. But I was like, but I think it's so funny, because even in that, the fact that somebody else has to help you get on this bar, right? To prove that you can do a pull up or hold for whatever.
Or whatever it was.
Like, come on. It doesn't even make sense. Logically.
No. A lot of things in the fitness realm doesn't make sense. And I'm really excited to see things evolve to something else. Because when I was growing up, I had seen a fitness leader or a yoga teacher like you, how much different would my relationship with my body be? If I could see a full range of bodies, shapes, color, ethnicities, doing something that I wanted to do, like, how would that have changed my life?
Yeah.
And you were lucky to have your parents as models of that.
Right. And I think also, and I mean, because I speak to this often, I do like yoga philosophy and social justice lectures and workshops. And I speak to that also. I'm like, it's when you've always seen yourself, it's easy for you to be like, oh, well, people should just do things. But when you don't understand what it's like to not see yourself in spaces, you don't understand that barrier of entry in itself. Outside of everything else culturally that you have to like deal with, outside of everything else like personally, it's like that in itself is crazy. Because even I did a Nike campaign in January, which is again another situation where it's like, how great would it have been when I was a child to see somebody that's clearly Black, right? Not ethnically ambiguous. A Black woman, right? Because that's the thing too.
That is a thing. We know.
Right. So, doing these cool things with their body and like jumping really high in things, right? That's not, again, in a small body, but still doing all the things. And that's the ongoing joke with like my friends, and like even one of my friend's sisters, she was drunk, so like excuse the language, but she was like, how is Krista's butt so big and she can do all the stuff that skinny white girls do? And I'm like, y'all are hilarious. But again, I think that mindset has been given to us that we can't because of our anatomy. And again, you've never seen it, so why would you believe anything different?
It's true. It's true. Or that we can do these things in a slightly different way, right? Like it doesn't have to look exactly as it does or exactly as it is curated on social media in Nike or Aloe campaigns. Like it can look
or even books
different. Well, anywhere in media. It can look different. It can be different. This homogeneous ideal of what fitness looks like is ridiculous. And the fact that we equate thinness with fitness is ridiculous. Like I was saying I work with a trainer at the gym, and I was saying to the trainer, like, there are people who are my size that run circles around people who are half of my size. Yet I'm the one with the body that is not fit, right? And there's no way to look at somebody and tell their health status. But we do that. And we feel so empowered to criticize. When Ash got all that pushback, I was just like, who are these people? Like, I would like you to go one-on-one with Ash, one-on-one with Ash on the rowing machine, and let me see what you got. Go ahead.
Because you
show me.
And I think that's also the other thing is like people's mindset on what the reason we work out is, right?
Yes.
And me and some of my friends have been having this conversation recently. And I have friends of all shapes and sizes. But my smaller friends are really like, because people are like, why are you working out if you're just going to eat unhealthy? And it's like, first of all, you don't know how I eat, so let's start there. But even let's say I did, right? Let's
Who
say
cares?
I did.
Food is food. Who cares? No moral attachment to food.
All right, it's none of your business. But she one of my friends said this to me. She was like, so if working out is just for losing weight, then why do people who are already fit work out? She was like, if you were going to go along that logic of the only reason why you should work out is because you want to get small and lose weight, then why would people who still work out when they're small keep doing
continue to do so? Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And I wish that we could divorce those two things. I wish that people could know that, and I say this, I feel bad for my Tuesday morning class. I do a fusion flow, which is weights, Pilates, and yoga. And then at the end, we do a dance party. So I put on a 3-minute thing, and we just dance like nobody's looking. And what I say to my fitness class is, if you're afraid to dance in public, close your eyes and nobody can see you. And I go, close your eyes and just dance as hard as you can for like 3 minutes. And I mean, people are going at it, and it's the most joyful, wonderful class ever. And it's a challenging class. And then at the end, I go, see how we feel? This is why we do it. And I always make the joke that I don't like to check a bag when I travel. So I pack a 35-pound carry-on. It's not cute. I struggle through the airport on these wheels, but I want to be able to lift that 35-pound carry-on into the overhead bin. And usually when I overpack my bag, there's nobody around me to go, do you need me to help you lift that up? So I have to be prepared to do it for myself. This last trip to New York, somebody did offer. I'm like, no. I work out. And that's what I said. No. I work out for this very reason, so I can drag this heavy suitcase. I work out as an investment in my future self. Right? Like, I am 52 years old, and I want to remain mobile for as long as humanly possible.
Exactly.
And I understand that we change, and I understand that my body changes, and I understand if we live long enough, all of us will become part of the disability community. In the meantime, how can I start to slow down that process? How can I maintain my muscle and my bone density? How can I maintain my good mood? Because often doing yoga and working out stops me from punching people in the face. I'm just going to be honest.
I say that all the time. No, I legitimately verbatim say that all the time. People are like, why do you work out so much? I was like, because I can't just go around punching people in the face.
It's like, not. It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon.
Deeply frowned upon. So if y'all want me to do that, that's why we're here. That's why I lift really big weights, right?
Yes.
And even to that regard, I tell, especially women, like, I'm like, look, by the time if you haven't picked up a weight by the time you're 25, 30, you need to decide to. Because women, and I follow another fitness influencer who's also a nurse, and she speaks to this often too. She's like, I wish more women would lift weights, because lifting weights helps you increase bone density. It helps, heavy weight increase bone density. It helps with your longevity. It helps you to be able to sustain yourself, because she's saying she has a lot of elderly women, right, who have a fall and their bones are so brittle that they don't recover, and that's usually what takes them out. And women don't understand that. Even like when you start talking about your metabolism, you start talking about hormones as you get older, when you're perimenopausal, when you're menopause, like you're going through menopause, all of this helps you, right?
Yes, with the symptoms.
Like literally not lose your mind.
Yes.
Like, and I'm not even being like facetious, like legitimate.
This is not hyperbole. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not hyperbole.
You literally could lose your mind going through
Totally.
menopause.
I know, I'm there. I can testify to that.
And especially, and this is the other thing too, and this is like the grandeur of just the human body and how it prepares you to like stay alive as long as it can. But the reason why women start gaining weight as they get older is because you need that fat in your system as you go through menopause. It helps you, right?
Yes.
And people don't understand. And I just be like, stuff like nothing is just like by happenstance in our systems. Like your body really does know how to keep you alive if you work with it.
It's true. It's true. Here's something I say to my students all the time when I'm talking about body positivity, right? Because body positivity has certainly been co-opted by the fitness industry to mean something else entirely. And so I know that's a podcast for another day, because you and I could spend probably a couple hours on that. And I say to people, this body that you are in is hundreds, if not possibly thousands of years of evolution and ancestry to create a perfect customized package for you. How many of us want I want a custom gown from Christian Siriano. I'm not going to lie. Christian Siriano, I know you're not listening, but I want a custom gown. But you know what?
Happen to be.
If you happen to be, if you care at all, okay. But this is a custom body that has all this ancestry and knowledge and evolution. And it is so worth your respect. And it's so worth you learning to understand it. The minute I stopped fighting my body, the better off we both were. The better off my mental health was, the better off I was able to figure out what movements work for me, what movements didn't work for me, what foods I loved and were making me feel good, what foods I loved that were making me feel bad, that I still eat on occasion because I don't give a shit. But you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just going to deal with the... Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to deal with whatever digestive upset I have because I really do want whatever this is. But I want to talk to people about appreciating the skin that they're in. And that's what the body positivity movement is. It's not like, I hear this all the time, glorifying, obesity or unhealthy or whatever. It's making peace with the body that you're in. If the shaming of fat people and the shaming of fatness and putting down people ever worked, everybody would be thin, because we've been doing this for at least 100 years. At least.
And here's the thing, and this is why I wish people were a little more aware.
There's a
right?
good word.
Because I was going to say something else, but I felt like aware was a nicer variation of what I was going to say.
Yeah.
This is all about capitalism.
Of course. Everything is.
We are forced to dislike ourselves and strive for something that's unattainable, right? And I was watching an interview recently, and I forget who the actress was, but she was like, even our pictures, right? The pictures that you guys see on these billboards and the pictures that you guys see at these, they're Photoshopped. She was like, guys,
within an inch
of
your life
is real.
Yeah.
Like, none of this is real. And this thing that we're striving for so deeply to attain is not attainable because it's not even real in real life. It doesn't exist. Right?
It's a digital influenced image, right?
Exactly. And it's only to sell you something. And that's the bigger thing. Everything is meant to sell you something, right? Yeah. And I think for me, and just speaking to like ancestry, because I get a lot into like eugenics and like how our DNA advances from each generation to each generation so you can survive, right? Your current climate, activities, etc. But I'm like, and it's so interesting to be in this space, but to also still be struggling with things. And again, I do believe that people need to step into this space of like duality. And this is what I teach. I was like, even if there is something on your body, let's say you want to change it. Okay, great. But today it's not going to change. Right? Yeah. So today, this is the body that you were in. And you can choose to embrace that body and love the body that you're in. It's helping you move and navigate the world that you're in. And not saying that maybe one day you will shift that thing about yourself you don't like. But at the same time, you may not. And if you don't, are you going to hate yourself forever?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like you can want to evolve and still love who you are in the interim. And people have a problem with understanding.
Yes. Yeah. Like these two things are mutually exclusive. Like people don't get that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And part of the human condition in terms of capitalism is to teach you to always be wanting and always be striving. Because then you're always going to be buying that next thing. You're always going to be striving for that next thing instead of what we talk about in yoga, right? Santosha, being content at where we are. Doesn't mean that we're giving up, doesn't mean that we don't want to move forward, but can we be content in the moment? Because if we're not content in the moment, we're going to have a miserable life. And then you're going to be on the interwebs trolling folks. Yeah. No, I was going to say, you'd be on the interwebs trolling folks because people who are secure and happy in their bodies aren't on your website trolling you, aren't on your Instagram trolling you. They have better shit to do with their time.
And let me tell you something from algorithm standpoint, and this is for any troll that might come upon this. If you really don't like something, the best thing you can do is not engage with it. Because the moment you engage with it, the algorithm doesn't know if it's good or bad. They don't know if you had a nice comment or a bad comment. All they know is that you're engaging with this content. So if you really don't like something on the interwebs, don't engage with it, right?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
That is my biggest thing. And I think because, like I said, I work in social media, there's lots of them there that I don't like. And I'm just like, and I'm going to leave it right there because it's just not worth it. And I don't know. There's so many layers to this. Because I do feel like part of it too, when we go back to like accepting ourselves for who we are and where we are in these spaces, like a lot of my issue, even right now, right? Because I'm like, do I want to lose weight? Do I not want to lose weight? Like, what? I'm like teeter-tottering, right? Because part of me, and me and my therapist are working through this too, because part of me is like, I don't want to lose weight, but it's not because it's like, I don't want to lose weight. I don't want to lose weight because I don't want people to feel like they have to lose weight to do what I do, right?
Right,
so it's like grand picture, like, I don't want to lose weight. But then I think about my relationship because people always ask me like, oh, what's your diet? What do you eat? Right. And I don't talk about it often. And I think people think I don't talk about my diet because I eat poorly. That's not why I don't talk about my diet. I don't talk about my diet because I don't eat enough and I don't want people to pick up my bad habits. That's why I don't talk about my diet. Right. I will go like all day and not eat. Or I'll go like all day and it'll be like 2 p.m. and I'll be like, okay, let me have a salad. Right? Oh, and it's like and this is like we gotta stop like reinforcing that reality, right? Yeah. And this is like as a busy parent, as somebody, because so I have a holistic doctor and I have a therapist, right? And my holistic doctor is very like, she's like very like zen and like you have to nourish yourself and like, right? She's like helping me renegotiate my relationship with food, but then also just like the reality of like, girl, if you don't eat, like you're not gonna be able to do all this other stuff you do.
How are you supposed to sustain yourself? You have to feed your body.
Exactly. But me and one of my other friends, she's just my friend, she's my pro-fight, but my sorority sister.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Fight, right?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, what? Yeah, thanks.
She's a medical doctor too, and she and I really dove into it one night because I had sent her my labs and I had great labs, right? Very healthy across the board. But I went to this like older white guy. Oh God, I already know where this is going. Right. To kind of figure out what's going on with me because like something is off in my system. Like I can feel it because I'm very in tune with my body, but I can't quite place it.
Pinpoint it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did this whole blood panel and he walks in, he's like, surprisingly, all your blood work is very normal. And I'm like,
surprisingly? What does that mean? Yeah.
Right. And like, why are you
fat phobia?
Yeah. So then goes on and was like, well, because I had gone in because I had gained a lot of weight like recently in a rapid way. And I was like, this is off
for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, right. Because it was just so quick, right? It wasn't like, you know how you like something is just like off, like in your
I get
system.
it. Yeah, I get it.
So we were trying to figure it out because I'm like, I also don't want any health problems to come up, so let's like get ahead of it. I do believe in being proactive.
I think it's way better than reactive.
So then he's like, oh, we can't give you any medicine because your like metabolic system is fine. Right. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, have you ever considered surgery? And I was like, I'm like, why would I consider surgery? Like, in your mind, like how he's like, yeah, you can just do the sleeve and like you can help you lose like 100 pounds. And I was like, but I don't want to lose 100 pounds. I was like, that's not my goal here. My goal is to figure out why I'm gaining.
What's going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my system. I'm not trying to like just lose weight to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want a magic pill to lose weight. I want you to actually figure out what is wrong with me.
Yeah.
So like there's not something else. And I say that because that's been my whole life, right? And I think that's why my relationship with food is so anxiety
ridden.
Because for a long
I was gonna say, go ahead, sorry. And a disordered relationship with food is the norm here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's my biggest struggle too, because again, and not even that I don't even want to eat sometimes, but like the anxiety around eating it. Am I eating the right thing? And should I be eating this? And is this enough protein? Because I know I'm going to lift weights. Like I have like created so much anxiety around food that avoiding it is often the easiest solution.
I get that.
Right? So, I mean, but I say all that to say, because people often ask me, they're like, what's your diet? Or you must eat so poorly, and that's why you're away. I'm like, if you only knew, if you only actually knew. But then again, I don't want to, I avoid telling people my diet because I know that I need to adjust my eating habits before I share my diet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if I'm going to share it. Because I'm like, I don't want people to think that how my eating habits are normal, or that they should be doing them because they should.
Yeah. Right. I wish we could stop with this whole what do people eat in a day. Have you seen all those videos on YouTube? You know, I don't think that's important or helpful or necessary. I follow a person on the internet called the Nutrition Tea. Her name is Shana, and she's always, I posted her today. She's always, you know, dispelling these myths. I had a really interesting situation happen, and I would, you know, just from what you're saying, I would have your thyroid checked out if you haven't had it checked out already. But I had a thyroid issue where I was dropping tons of weight, like literally tons of weight. And I couldn't figure it out. I went to like 3 different doctors who did a workup, and nobody could tell me. I was sweating. I had heart palpitations. I was miserable. And everybody in the fucking world was like, you look so great. What are you doing to lose all this weight? I feel like hell and death. I'm barely making it through my day, but yet you want to comment on the size of my, like, I would be trembling because what happens, I had hyperthyroidism. Your thyroid speeds up, and I'm literally shaking like this and sweating and miserable, but all people could say to me is, damn, you look good. Shut your mouth.
And I had a similar situation when I was in my early 20s, right before I got pregnant with my son. I like dropped a ton of weight. Like gone, right? And my crazy but was like, I still want to lose 50 pounds. And I looked at those pictures now, and I was like, where was I about to get this 50 pounds to lose though? like where was it coming from? But again, to your point, everyone's like, oh, you look so great, you're so blah 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 blah. I'm like,
I feel
looking back on that now, I'm like, what I was doing to be that size is not sustainable, and it's not healthy, and I would not encourage anyone to do that. But people just look at it for face value.
Yes.
I even have a friend who, well, I guess she's not my friend no more. I have an old associate.
You have an acquaintance. You have a frenemy.
An old associate who, as I was gaining all this weight these past 2 years, because I mean, it was noticeable, right? And she was like,
and everybody gained weight over the pandemic, just so you know. You're in good company.
She was like, oh, it's because you're unhealthy, and it's because of how you eat, and like just because you work out doesn't mean you're healthy, and like you live a very sedentary lifestyle. And I was like, girl.
Come on.
And what I wanted to say to her, and I didn't because I just didn't have the time, was like, the same habits that you're wanting to point out right now are the same habits I had when I was your yoga instructor, the same habits I had when I was like that super small person that you admired. These aren't new habits. This isn't a new lifestyle I'm living. So all these bad habits now that are making me so unhealthy are the same habits I had when you were telling me how healthy and fit I looked. So like by default, your like argument is dull. Like your argument is like defeating yourself. You're just contradicting yourself, right? So we really do, because so many people, men and women, because I've talked to a lot of men who tell me stories about their friends that they've lost because of bodybuilding and how they were training their bodies and overtraining their bodies and how they were, not even necessarily steroids always, right? Like other habits that they pick up of ways like how to build muscle. And they're like, they were so unhealthy, but their physique looked great. But
and so people just assumed.
And so people just assumed.
People just look at something and make an assumption about what's going on.
So harmful.
It is. And unnecessary.
Even a doctor who's telling you to get surgery when they're completely healthy according to labs. Like, what
is going on? He's having you amputate a perfectly healthy part of your body. I have such a big problem with bariatric surgery that we're going to take, or the sleeve or whatever it is we're doing now, that we're going to take a perfectly healthy organ and amputate it. And so many people die from that. We don't talk about
and so many people have complications they live with after that.
Yes, it's very dangerous. And I have to ask myself, only in the situation where you have to weigh the options. I'm not criticizing anybody, and please don't at me about this whole conversation. All I'm saying is that you have to weigh those consequences, because I had a friend that recently died from complications to having, they called it a band around her. She's relatively famous. I'm not going to name her. If you've seen people I've worked with, you'll know who she is. But she passed away last year because of all of these complications from that band. And I did a retreat with her in 2018, and she was having so much problems with that band. We would be in a restaurant, she would be eating, she would look panicked, things would get stuck. She'd run off to the bathroom and we'd be freaking out because it kept twisting. She had to go in and have it repaired a couple times. And in the end, she ended up dying.
See, and these are the conversations that people don't talk about. And I think especially when it's not necessary. If you're telling me, because literally his words.
Yeah, it wasn't necessary.
Your blood pressure is great. Your cholesterol is great. You're not even almost pre-diabetic. I'm like, so why are you telling me to go have surgery?
Right. They must be getting a kickback because we are obsessed with fitness. Funny?
He said that. He's like, well, I don't perform the surgeries, and I'm not, because I guess probably somebody has said that to him before. Which in turn means he suggests this often. Because if you already have a response to what I'm saying, this is one of your go-to. Yeah, this is one of your go-to suggestions, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be medicine or surgery.
Yes.
There's so many other things.
So many other options. And the fact that they were just looking for a way to change your body immediately, that they couldn't see that in your plus size body, your bigger body. And I like to call it an abundant body. I'm an abundant personality. I'm an abundant in conversation. So I must have a body that matches my abundance. I would like to be more abundant in my financial situation, but we're working on that. But I have a lot of abundance hanging out in this place. So my body has to match the abundance. But the first go-to is get a sleeve. And not let's do a panel on something else. Not let me send you to another specialist and figure this out. That's not the next goal.
That is like, so it's so funny. So like I told you, I have a holistic doctor as well.
Oh, good. Yes.
And she, and also connecting the dots. I went to her because of my knees. And then I started mentioning other stuff to her. And then I let her see my labs. And she was like, the inflammation in your knees, because my knees have, I have arthritis in my knees, but then I have an old, like, soccer injury as well. And, like, recently, my knees have just been, like, killing me. She was like, she's like, the inflammation in your knees could be caused by something else going on in your system. Because even, like, again, like I said, my rapid weight gain and, like, retaining water. And she's like, there's so many other things that could be going on. And she looked at my blood test. She was like, there's so many other panels they could have run if these all came back normal. She was like, they could have done more than this. And the fact that they chose to stop here and then suggest surgery, she was like, that's a very old
red flag
medical, medical mindset. Exactly.
Plus, and I wouldn't put it past them that they see a Black woman and there's certain stereotypes that they're feeding into. So the default is this. The default is this in the medical community.
And my thing is, like, if I didn't know better, I would have been like, oh, okay, maybe. Like, I was like, I'm not getting surgery. Not only did I say I'm not getting surgery, I was like, I want a copy of my lab work too.
Yeah, because I'm going to go elsewhere.
Literally, that's why I wanted my lab work. I was like, thank you. Just can I have my lab work?
Thank you. And I'm going to get a second opinion, because that's the problem with the medical industry, right? Like, they're so quick. I can't believe how quick he was to suggest surgery to you when everything else was fine. That we aren't going to run different panels. We aren't going to send you to an endocrinologist to see what's going on. We aren't going to, you know what I mean? We aren't going to send you to somebody. Something is happening. I don't know what it is. Let me send you to a specialist.
Right. And he is an endocrinologist, but he wasn't my endocrinologist. My endocrinologist was out sick. Right? Okay. So mind you, on top of the fact that he was just looking at my blood work for face value, he didn't even have no background on me. He didn't know anything about my background. I mean, you don't even have a point of reference to start on, buddy. You need to ask me some questions.
Holy smokes. Right?
Like, it was bizarre. And that's what my holistic doctor was like, did he ask you what you ate in a day? Did he ask you, like, what your lifestyle was like? I was like, yeah, it's none of that, girl. He just assumed I was overeating, and that's why she's Black. That's why I said that.
Yeah, I knew immediately.
But I was like, he didn't ask none of that. And he didn't ask my family history. He didn't ask nothing. I was like, this is like irresponsible.
Exactly.
It's just irresponsible, and it's so
and neglectful.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're an aware, conscious consumer of the medical industry. You're a fitness professional. You're a health professional. So you know to look for these flags. You know to ask more questions. But there's a lot of us out there in the community that look at doctors as the be-all, know-all, end-all, and as gods. And when they give us this information, we just go, da-da-da-da-da, we're going to go along with this. And it ends up giving us a worse outcome. I mean, on the flip side of that, you can go on WebMD and diagnose yourself with everything under the sun. But you also need to be more critical in your thought. And one of the things that we learn about in yoga is discernment, right? Those are one of those big things that yoga teaches us about. I'm going to take that information. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to do some more research from reputable, places. I'm going to go and have a second opinion by a doctor I appreciate, and then I'll decide. But to jump from one extreme to the other was absolutely irresponsible and reckless. Can you imagine the damage he could have done to you?
And the danger he could have put me in. But even to that point, the reason why I'm going to this alternative doctor, because I went to the knee doctor, he did x-rays, was like, well, you have arthritis in your knees, you got old injuries, it just is what it is,
Nice,
you're
great,
thanks. He tried to put me on a medicine for anti-inflammation.
And I was going to say the first thing,
my physical therapist was like, don't take that. People die from taking that. My physical therapist was like, no. They were like, take turmeric. They're like, you can take turmeric supplements, right?
Yeah.
And a few of my physical therapists and my chiropractor was like, don't take that, right?
Oh my God.
But even when I went back for my follow-up with this the knee specialist, he didn't give me any. I was like, so you don't want to take an MRI? Like, I have internal things going on in my knees, right? I have screws in my knees. I have because I had surgery on it. That surgery is 17 years old.
Yeah, so things have shifted. Yeah,
you don't want to see.
Oh my gosh.
That's bare minimum. Our medical system is bare minimum unless you make them.
Right, unless you advocate for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem, and some of us aren't capable of doing that. Exactly. Can you imagine if there was a language barrier? Could you imagine? Like, there's so many other things if you were insecure. You and I are strong and powerful, and we're like, I'm going to get another opinion and come back. I talked to some other folks and come back. And I remember when I was having trouble with my thyroid, they put me on thyroid medication for a while, and then they took me off of thyroid medication without weaning me. And then, of course, the hyperthyroidism came back. And then his next thing was, let's take it out. Let's just kill your thyroid. And I had talked to so many people who had their thyroid ablated and said to me, it ends that problem for you, but it creates all these other problems for you. Yeah. And if I'm going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life, I'd rather just keep my thyroid and take the medication than not keep my thyroid and take this other medication. Like, it was just like, we don't know what else is going to be obliterated when you decide the organ
to
that
take
controls
something out.
everything in my body and just kill it off. You can't tell me. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take same thing as you. I'll take my labs. And I went to a teaching hospital because I figured if I saw an endocrinologist in a teaching hospital, they're doing the latest, greatest research, right? They're going to be on top of things. My doctor is young. This was an older gentleman. My doctor was young. I was telling her, you know, all the activities I was doing. She's like, you're on the right track. You're feeling good. This medication dose is fine. Keep doing what you're doing. We don't need to take out your thyroid, right? I'm just like, if I had just been like, okay, take out my thyroid.
No problem.
No problem. I'm like, and then everybody I talked to said, I did that. And this is what happened to me. I'm like, I don't need any of that. Like, I know what's going on this end. I don't want to participate in this new stuff. And he was just like, I was so frustrated. But you and I have that power, that wherewithal to be like, no, and move on. But not everybody has that. So how many people are injured by the system?
Exactly. And even like in regards to my knees feel so much better now. And I've only been seeing her for a couple of months. And when I tell you my knees had hurt since December until recently when I started going to her. Ouch. And like consistent chronic pain and like not like a little bit of pain, but like shooting pain.
Ouch.
But she figured out what was wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And like that's the thing is like she actually figured out what was wrong and why they felt this way. And they've been increasingly getting better since I've gone to see her. And I'm like, now if only the medical industry
could play catch up. Could play catch up. And we're lucky enough to have access. I'm here in Canada, so we have socialized medicine. My husband has benefits because, I'm self-employed like you, so I don't have a benefits package. So I'm lucky I have access to that. I feel bad for other folks who don't have access to that,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
How many people get injured by the system who don't have the power to advocate? And how much longer do we have to break down these old ideals? How much longer do you have to educate your doctor that we are not using these measurements of fitness anymore? If one more doctor comes at me with that bullshit measuring index, the BMI, to tell me
BMI.
Anything, I love to tell them, an astronomer made that whole thing up, not a medical professional. Can you not? Do you want to know the history of this? Because you clearly do not.
It was only supposed to be used as a means for statistics. It wasn't even supposed to be used as a means to measure health. Like its initial purpose was not to measure someone's
individual health. There are better indicators. But that's when I hear somebody bring that up, I'm like, what century are you in? This is no longer a measurement. There are better ways to measure people's health than your height divided by your weight. Like what?
Exactly.
What is that? What is that?
And it's like, it doesn't account for muscle mass. It doesn't account for body fat. It does. I'm just like
genetics, activity, stress levels,
other things, right?
Yeah.
If it's not helping you do anything, then like, why are you even pointing to this? You have to do so many other things to actually even figure out what's actually wrong once you discover, oh, you're obese. Okay, so why are we even using this number? Why don't we start with this is what's actually going on in your system?
Right.
This number is so arbitrary because it doesn't help you do anything at all.
It doesn't at all. It's a waste of everybody's time. You know what? I could talk to you forever and ever and ever and ever. I feel like we are sisters, that we have had a parallel experience in life, but it doesn't surprise me because we are both Black women moving through the world as Black women, and these are things that come up. Like, this is a common story. Unfortunately, this is a common story. So on the Intentional Wellbeing podcast, I try to give people tips around finding their own well-being. And I've moved away from the wellness because I find that wellness has been so equated with capitalism. I want people to do things that don't cost them any money and don't take up a ton of their time. Like if you are a mom and you are a business owner, you've got all this stuff going on, there has to be something that you can do that is sustainable. What are some of the things that you do for your own well-being that are just very accessible to you and could be accessible to other folks?
Make a cup of coffee. So like,
I know. That's my favorite.
So I have so many mugs, right? And my friends are like, you have too many mugs. But
no,
like,
you don't.
Really, that's what I said. I just buy another one. But,
yeah, mind your business. No, I don't. Yeah,
literally mind your business because I'm about to get 3 more. Thanks.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
But yeah, just like the ritual of like making your coffee. And it doesn't have to be coffee, tea,
whatever
cocktail,
it is you like.
You know?
Yeah, smoothie, whateajver you like.
Yeah, just that
pina colada.
doing it exactly. But But there's a ritualistic like process you start when you're doing these small things. Taking baths, right? I love a good bath. And like, you know, and baths don't have to be expensive. Like, yeah, there's these expensive bath bombs now, whatever. You can get some Epsom salt. You get a big bag of Epsom salt for like $3, right? And like, and just sit with yourself, light some candles, and like just take a moment to like. And again, it's that ritualistic part of it, right? Where you're just like caring for yourself and doing something that's just for you.
Absolutely.
And for me, like working out is like my go-to. My go-to. Like I have so funny. I couldn't work out earlier today, but I have a walking pad like in my room. So I was reading some stuff for class, and I was just walking on my walking pad while I was reading, right? Like just moving. You don't have to like lift like weights all the time and like do these hard workouts. Just moving your body and getting your blood flowing, right? It got my energy levels up. It like
you I feel better.
Tired. Yeah, I felt better. So I mean, it's those small things. Like I feel like people think they have to do these grandiose things all the time, but those small moments with yourself. Like I walked for like 40 minutes, and that was great. Yeah,
that was perfect.
You know.
My best investment, I'm going to show you my workout space. Do you see? So there's my spin bike. I call her Spinderella. And then you see me and Spinderella, we are tight. You see my yoga mat and all my yoga stuff. And I'm lucky I have a dedicated space in my room, but I call it like the gift of 10 minutes. Like, even if you've only got 10 minutes to get some movement, do whatever you want to do for 10 minutes. Take a stroll around the block, sit on your yoga mat for 10 minutes. Just do something that that's just for you. That has nothing to do with anybody else. Is not attached to an aesthetic anywhere. Is not just a way. Like even turning off my phone.
Yes, I love my phone on Do Not Disturb. That's one of my favorite pastimes.
And I also love that knowing about this algorithm on in the social media world. Don't feed. I've always heard that term. Don't feed the trolls, but don't engage with that. Stuff, because you're just going to get more of that stuff. And now I know. And I had this exact conversation with my stylist today. She's like, I don't have the time or the energy. You are a better person than me to try to educate people. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it ain't worth it, especially if they don't want to be educated. Because I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you, just argue with you. Like, no thank you. I got other things to do.
It's clear you don't, so find somebody else to argue with. Like, honestly, my favorite saying is, today is not the day and I am not the one.
Exactly. I told that to somebody once. It was a Sunday morning, and this person was going back and forth with me. I was like, I'm not going to let you ruin my Sunday morning. You can keep going if you want to, but I'm not responding anymore.
I'm out
like,
here.
Literally, I was like, I'm done.
I'm done. My therapist always says, put the racket down, because it only works if you volley the ball back. Mm-hmm. Right?
Exactly.
If you volley the ball back.
That's so true.
So I want to find out, where can people find you? Obviously on your website, which is
ChristaJanineFit.com. So I am Christa Janine everywhere things exist. Like literally.
So you're on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat,
Twitter, TikTok. I'm not on Snapchat. I'm too old for Snapchat.
That's for the young. I was just going to say that's for the young folks. My kids are on Snapchat. I'm trying not to be in their privacy lives. I let them have their.
I don't even know how it works, if I'm being honest. I used to work at Snapchat. That's why it's funny. I downloaded it when I worked there. I used it while I worked there. And the day my contract ended, I deleted it.
You were out. Yeah, I never even downloaded it. I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. But everywhere else, on Peloton, I'm Christa Janine. Like, literally, I'm Christa Janine everywhere. So it makes it nice and easy.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that about you. And what do you got coming up that we can be a part of? I noticed you're doing a retreat in Ghana.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. So
that looks fabulous.
I'm so amped. So it's centered around Juneteenth. And for those of you who don't know what Juneteenth is, it's the day...
You're living under a rock.
That. And it's commemorative of the day that the last African slaves were freed in America, which is actually a year and a half after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. So instead of just like having a barbecue or like a celebration this year, I wanted to do a yoga retreat centered around like our ancestry and
finding your roots.
Yes, everybody isn't from, Ghana. I get that. And we don't know where we're from. And that's part of the reason why trips like this are important. because we don't have any ancestral connection to the continent of Africa, even though that is where our ancestry is from. And one of my biggest things right now is like really helping people, especially disenfranchised communities, Black and brown people specifically, let me be very clear, to understand that like our ancestors didn't just give us this trauma and this like, you know, heartache and pain. Like they gave us a lot more, because had they not survived, we would not be here. Right?
Exactly.
At the very base of like our existence is all of this like power and strength and like ability to endure and be patient and like move through the world. So that's what this retreat is centered around, right? We're gonna do yoga, we're gonna experience African culture, and not like from a touristy standpoint. So the guide is actually from Ghana. Nice. She develops these tours centered around like culture and going to the markets and having, you know, your own clothing made from like African seamstress. And like the end of the trip kind of culminates with us going to a Black woman to own spa, right? And like supporting Black owned businesses there, and really pouring into the local economy and not just the tourist economy, which is something that's also very important to me. And then even so on Juneteenth and the day after, we have like our naming ceremony at the ancestral rivers, which for those of you who don't know rather. Right. It's where like Africans before they were taken to the slave dungeons, got their like final bath after their like long trek from whatever village they were from. They would go to this river and like clean themselves and then go to the point of no return. So it's a very like spiritual space. And then the next day we go to the slave dungeons to kind of see how they were separated and divided by territory that they were going to go to. And kind of the whole process, just to understand kind of what your ancestors had to do for you to be here, right? And I think people don't have that connection anymore. Yeah, because that's not what we're given. We're given slavery was bad and colonialism was bad, and yes, all those things are true. But like, we need to start connecting the dots of the reality of yes, all those things were bad, but you're here, which means your ancestors were able to make it through all those things. Yes, so you could
resilience.
Be here. Right?
Resilience, yeah.
So that's what it's about.
I love that.
Yeah, so that's what the retreat is about. So that is on my website, so you can learn more information about it there. I'm capping it at like 10 or 15 people because I do want it to be an intimate trip, so people can really get the most out of it. But right now we got about 6 more spots left. So nice. Yeah, so it's not until June. It's June 13th through the 22nd, I believe. Okay. Don't quote me on that. The actual dates are on the website.
It's on the website, everybody. And I'll be in the show notes. It'll be in the show notes.
But I do believe that is the time frame we are going. But yeah, I mean, if that's something that you're interested in, the reason why I'm calling it the Liberated Yoga Retreat is because I do feel like there is great liberation in understanding where you come from and where your true source of power lies. And for me, I feel like that's our ancestors, right? Because like, if my descendants were relying on me to have to go through that, I don't know. You know what I mean?
I hear that. I hear that.
It's a lot. Appreciative. Yeah, I am appreciative.
Can you imagine how strong they had to be? And I always say to myself, where I am sitting here, where I am talking to you, my experiences in the world, I always revert back to Maya Angelou's poem, I am the hope and the dream of the slave.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, and even seeing Woman King, and like I said, I talked to you about oh my God. But like the Woman King, like... I think that movie put a lot of other things in perspective for me too. Because the amount of like intuition and patience and like knowing when to act. Right? And knowing and having to be strategic about things and not waiting, right? Being proactive about it. Like that movie.
It fed me because I did my DNA probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and the majority of my DNA is from Benin, which is the country in which that Woman King takes place, and is also that tribe of women warriors that we also see in the Black Panther movies is based on that tribe from Benin. So based on my I know, right? And so based on my personality and how I behave in the world, I believe, and this is I'm allowed to believe this. I tell myself, I am descended from those women. It's in my DNA. I know it.
I think so,
I know
too.
it.
And I don't even know what my DNA is. I'm like, yes, that was me. I was there.
I was there.
My ancestors. My ancestor.
That's my auntie, right? Because 40% of my DNA is from Benin. 12 of it is from Nigeria. Those countries are side by side. Yeah. The other 10% is from Cameroon. And 21% of it is like Irish and Scottish. And we know where that's
crazy about that. Yeah. I'm like, yeah. Even Irish, mixed. Though. Yeah, even Irish had it rough.
And Portuguese. But the Portuguese colonized Barbados, which is where my family ended up. And Barbados was the hub of the British slave trade. So that's where the Portuguese and British stuff comes from.
Got it. See?
I'm doing some genealogy. Yeah, do it.
I need to do mine. My brother did his, but then somebody was like, yeah, but your DNA is going to be a little different than his. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, but we got the same parents. I'm like, it doesn't matter.
I know. It's like, you got to dig into it, right? Like, it was so really interesting.
Yeah, genetics
because I really want to know. Aren't they, though? I really want to know. Like, I want to know where I came from. I want to know what my connections are. I want to know I'm always jealous of white folks who say, oh, my grandma was Scottish and then my great-grandfather. I don't have any of that.
We migrated to America.
Blah, blah, ray.
I'm like, great for you, homie. Glad. You know what?
You do you.
Sorry, this is my last note. I was at a dinner once in Chicago, and they were all saying, like, their stuff, and I was like, my ancestors were slaves.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody just like, it was quiet. I was like,
quiet. I met a woman.
Next topic of conversation.
I was when I was in university, my maiden name was Small, and I remember running into a woman in one of my classes at university, and she said to me, "Oh, your last name is Small. My last name is Small too, and we're like from Britain." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure your family owned my family." And then she was real quiet. She was real quiet after that. And she just looked, her face fell. Like her face, when I said that, her face fell and she got pale. And then she sat down. She had talked to me for the rest of the semester. And I was okay with that. Yeah, your family probably owned my family. And she was like,
yeah. It's like when they make the kids do Heritage Day at school. I'm like, what?
No. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I'm like, don't get me started.
Exactly. You and I need to do this again. Christa,
absolutely.
Janine, I love you. I'm so grateful we could make this work. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your work. Thanks for being the first plus size person on Allo. Come on, Allo. Let's add some more folks on there so that alone.
I know.
Right? You could do some like collaborations with other folks. So I'm very excited to see you out there in the world doing your thing, girl. Thank you so much for being here.
Well,
thank you for representing for the culture.
Yes, it's all for the culture. It's always for the culture. Absolutely.
So thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. If you like it, please share. If you learned something today, share, tag us. Find Christa Janine on all of her social media handles. All the stuff will be in the show notes. Until next time, let's take our wellness and be intentional about it. Thanks, everyone. All right. That was amazing. You're a great it's clear that you